Hi, I'm James Eade of the Eade Foundation, and you can call me Jim. Sorry about the production errors. I didn't say producer error. I said production error. I always have this little difficulty with my producer, and but I'll talk to him after the show so that we get things straightened out. But this is the chess files. The answers are out there. It's brought to you by the Eade Foundation. And here's a little bit about me, James Eade, and you can call me Jim. But I started out in chess when I was quite young, and I started to play at a very high level for my age group. Now, this is ancient years ago. This is in ancient times, but I got pretty darn good. And I could fight with other grandmasters, or not other grandmasters, with grandmasters. I got as good that I could play with them. And this was amazing to me, but I started to get beat by them. And I knew I would never really become the world champion. So I turned my attention to writing. And I started to get involved in chess politics and doing all sorts of things in terms of organizing tournaments and all those things. And I ended up getting an award from the United States Chess Federation for an outstanding career achievement. So that's a little bit about me. But what are we talking about in terms of the chess files? The answers are out there. So what's the question? Well, the question today is, I've heard this term supernationals, and I know what nationals mean. I know what super means, but what does supernationals mean? So I've asked someone to come on to the show and explain to me what it means, what it looks like, how it all got started. And that guest today is Ralph Bowman. Ralph, thank you for joining my show.
It's You're welcome, Jim.
And so this term supernationals, I've heard it. What does it mean?
Well, basically, it's a combination of the national elementary, national junior high or middle school, and national high school tournaments, all in one location at the same time.
Wow. Is that a big tournament then? It must be.
Oh, starting with the first one, they've always been the largest tournaments ever held in the United States. And a few of them have been the largest tournaments ever held in the world.
How do you organize and direct and take care of all the logistics involved? That's got to be, have you ever done it?
Done it once. And can I give you the history of that?
Absolutely. That's why you're here.
Well, it's started back with the 1990 National High School Tournament that was held at the Kansas City Marketplace in Kansas City, Missouri. Myself and another chess coach named Paul DeBarth were the co-organizers of that tournament. Now, that tournament holds a special place in tournament history because it was the first national tournament to use computer pairings.
Wow.
Back in 2 years earlier, in 1988, all of the Kansas Scholastic tournaments began using a pairing program called Pair Plus. Now, in the 80s, the leading chess coach in the state of Indiana was Robert Fisher, no relation to Bobby, from Terre Haute. And one of the parents of one of his players was a computer programmer lady named Jo Eglin. And she wrote this program for Robert's tournaments, called Pair Plus, and it soon spread throughout the country. In order to get that tournament, or to use the 1990 National High School to use the program, what I had to do is I borrowed 6 computers from IBM, had all the entries sent to me at my home, and then I individually entered all of the players in each section onto the 6 computers. By the way, the computers did not have that big a hard drive. We used 3.5-inch floppies.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, are you talking about 100 players or 500 players or?
No, we were the first national tournament in 1990 to get over 900 players.
Whoa.
But that record only lasted for 1 year.
So you're onto something hot. Yeah.
Yeah, it only lasted for a year. But at that tournament, because of the numbers, on Saturday, the USCF Policy Board, now called the Executive Board, showed up, toured the facility, that evening had dinner in a restaurant next door, and invited Paul DeBarth and myself as the organizers to come to their meeting. And so we went, they asked us some questions about organizing, how long had we worked on it, which was 2 years, about the space. And we noted that we were only using 1/3 of the space in the Kansas City Market Center. And so I made the point that based on the numbers of players at the National High School, National Junior High, and National Elementary in the year before, all of those players could have easily fit in that one building. And if we did that, then it would be a tremendous publicity boon for the USCF. And at my partner, Paul DeBarth, made the statement to the policy board, yes, it would be a super tournament. Well, one of the members of the board at that time was Harry Sabine, who was a good friend of mine. And Harry took the notion. Yes.
There's an echo. My producer is telling me there's an echo when I speak. Do you have any other window open, or is your phone on, or maybe?
No.
Okay.
So I have another computer on, which I will shut down, but it's just on a blank screen.
Okay, I'm sorry. You talked to Harry Sabine, who I knew well as well. He's a great guy. Really, really involved in Scholastic chess.
Yes.
And so take it from there. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Okay. So Harry then took the ball and ran with it, and he came up with Super Nationals 1, which was in 1997 in Knoxville, Tennessee. Where Harry kind of dropped the ball was that instead of having chess people involved in the planning of the tournament, he had an event organizer completely plan everything. And chess people were very little involved. As a result, that tournament became one of the most disappointing tournaments. As a member of the Scholastic Committee, I kept hearing all kinds of reports of people saying, well, they'll never go to another one of them. It was too crowded. It just was not set up well for chess.
Well, an event planner sounds like a good idea, but you really got to have the chess input as well, it sounds like.
Or an event planner who has knowledge of chess.
Right. That would be ideal.
Yeah. Which USCF later did. They hired event planners later on, and about 8 years later, and then they began making sure the event planners knew about chess.
Right.
So Paul DeBarth and I knew that we could do Super Nationals the right way. And we had a building in Kansas City called Bartle Hall Exhibition Center. And at that time, It was the third largest exhibition center / convention center in the United States. Over 60,000 or 600,000 square feet.
Okay.
And so plenty of room. And so we decided we wanted to host it. The problem was there was so much negative information out there about Super Nationals 1 that it took me all of 1998 and most of 1999 to try to convince the Scholastic Committee to let me do a Super Nationals. By that time, I was chairperson of the Scholastic Committee. And a good friend of mine, Sunil Weermantri, was the most difficult person to convince. He was bound and determined there wasn't going to be another one, but I was able to convince him to come over from the dark side and join me. And so he acquiesced.
That's
And
great. Sunil's a great guy. I've had him on as a guest before, and I tip my hat to all that Sunil's accomplished. But, I have, found out that Sunil's a difficult guy to convince of something once he's made his mind up. So good for you. And that's an amazing
like I said,
accomplishment.
it took almost 2 years.
I believe you.
I'm not sure I convinced him. I think it was more wearing him down.
Whatever it took, you did what it took. Yeah.
But then we began working, and again, 2 years of work. Now, tournaments before our Super Nationals always had one GM in attendance, and we were going to blow people out of the water with our ideas. First of all, the tournament started with on Thursday we had the Bug House and Blitz.
Are you talking about this tournament?
That tournament. Well, let me go into that while you got it on the screen. That was our logo, and for a year and a half before the tournament, we went around to the Kansas Scholastic tournaments and said, first of all, what do you kids think would be a good logo for the tournament? And they started out with 2001, A Chess Odyssey, and went to all kinds of different things. Finally, the kids suggested Battle of the Minds.
There you have it.
And then we turned it over to the parents of a couple of the chess players who were graphic artists, and they came up with that design.
Oh, this design is beautiful. Yes.
In fact,
it says it all.
In fact, a dozen years later, USCF asked me to use that again for another Super Nationals.
Uh-huh.
I believe it was Super Nationals 5, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
Then, excuse me. So we also had another first, is that usually at invitational tournaments, the grandmasters would show up and give a speech or two and walk around and sign autographs. Well, our grandmasters did that, plus putting on simul's on Friday morning, plus during each round, any player in the tournament could take their score sheet into one of the rooms where there was one of our 3 grandmasters, and they could have the grandmaster on a big exhibition board go over their game in front of an audience.
That's awesome. A score sheet, that's how we record our moves. So,
correct. Right? Yes. We had a big score book that each player got round 1 that had 7 score sheets in it. And it also had a complete history of everyone who had won every national elementary, junior high, and high school tournament, individual and team, from the first one up to that year.
So that's a keepsake.
Oh, yeah. We wanted it as a keepsake. We ended up setting a record at that tournament that has yet to be broken. The only tournament in the world to have over 4,300 players playing in one room. That's how
amazing.
That's how big Bartle Hall is.
That's just hard to visualize.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
They were all in one room, and we only used 3/5 of the space available for the playing area. The rest of it was all Skittles.
There was room to grow. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, it was big enough that we had calculated we could easily handle 10,500 players in that hall.
My goodness. If you had the staff that manage it all.
Well, that's the key. That's where my co-organizer, Paul DeBarth, came in. This man was excellent at recruiting volunteers.
Yes.
And as anyone who's ever organized a scholastic tournament knows, it's going to fail unless you have lots of volunteers. We had coaches, we had parents, and some area chess players who volunteered to help. They did everything from refilling water containers to being guides around the area, because it was so large. The building was so large, it took up 2 city blocks. And so people needed help getting around. And we had people with vests on that you go to one of these people in the vests and they'll be able to help you.
Right. Excuse me. The tip of the hat to the volunteers, the people that help.
Always. But to this day, the last time was about a year and a half ago. I had someone come up to me at a tournament I was playing in and said that they had taken their child to that tournament, and it was still the best chess tournament they had ever held. Now, their kid was an elementary player, excuse me, and one of the things their kid really liked was that in one hallway that wasn't being used for anything, we put up arcade games, inflatables, a little, it was a place for little kids to have fun, because they have so much energy and they just need to get rid of it. So we did what we had first envisioned for a Super Nationals. We didn't make it a chess tournament. We made it a chess event.
That's right. Good for you. That's an amazing story, and it's hard for me to picture exactly what it would have looked like. But you were there. You can remember what it looked like, and I just have to tip my hat.
I've even got a picture on my wall of it. I should have sent that to you.
Yeah.
It was so big. We put a little platform at the back of the tournament and let parents go up on the platform, and so they could take pictures of the entire room. Interesting side note about Sunil. Now, Sunil was at the tournament, brought teams, won trophies, but he also made the comment to me, "You didn't tell me this place was this big. I would have bought better shoes."
That's the other thing about being one of those volunteers. You do a lot of walking.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing that, my chief tournament director was Bill Sneed.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes,
so,
an excellent TD.
And then the, let's see if I remember right, the high school section leader was Carol Jarecki, and the middle school section leader was Robert Tanner, and the elementary section leader was Robert Singletary.
I see.
And they came and made a tour of the facility And every single person they asked to be on staff, they first told them, bring comfortable walking shoes.
Yeah. No, and it sounds like you lined up the big guns to make sure that you had the talent to pull an event of that size off. So you had to have quality people that knew what they were doing and weren't going to get rattled by all the various numbers.
And we had a lot of them.
Yeah.
In the
and
back
2001, you had the computer power too. So
yeah. In the back room, which for those of you that don't know, the back room is a term among tournament directors for the room where the computers that do the pairing are located.
Right.
We had 9 people on 9 computers in that room working all the time that the tournament was going on. And we never had a problem.
That's amazing.
Everything went smoothly.
That is just what a tribute to you and your staff and to your co-organizer to pull off an event of that magnitude without any kerfluffles. And what about when you take the pairings from the computer and then post them? Was there a rush to see who, like if I was wanting to, see who I was going to play, I'd be so excited when that got posted. What was that like?
Okay. We knew because of the number of people that would be a problem. So there were 2 floors of the convention center. The lower floor was where the TD room, all the team rooms and USCF sales were, and most everyone would come in off the street into the lower level. So
Right.
we had pairings in 4 different places on the lower level, and then in 4 more places in the actual playing room. So had them spread out so that there was at least 60 feet between them, and got them high enough so you could look up. But for the high school section, we learned high school, middle school, elementary.
Eye level in each one. Yeah.
Yeah, get them down to their level, and the 3 were not posted together; they were in separate sections. There would be at least 20 feet between each section, so there's spread out.
That's somebody who knows what they're doing because you anticipate the problems before they happen.
Well, we try to. Well, yeah. It kind of helped because I was the primary tournament director for all tournaments, adult and scholastic, in Kansas during the 90s.
Right.
So I knew what a tournament director had to be able to handle.
That's when I first met you, Ralph, back in the 90s. And I just remember you always wearing a suit jacket and tie. And, so I guess you're retired now because you're looking a little more relaxed.
I'm at home. But, for 36 years of teaching, I wore a tie every single day.
Yeah.
Every time I directed a chess tournament, I was wearing a tie. Every time I went to a delegates meeting, I was wearing a tie because I wanted to appear professional. I felt professional. I wanted to appear that way. And I thought that, I believed that wearing a tie helped that.
So you think my t-shirt sent the wrong message?
It told people who you were.
But then you got into something else. You got into writing books. And
let me tell you how that came about.
Okay.
My doctor first asked me to retire in 2008. But he said, only continue if you really want to. And so I was talking it over with my wife, and she said, what are you going to do?
Right.
And I said, I don't know. She says, I do. You're going to sit at home in your lazy boy, watch the Western Channel all day long, and listen to your arteries harden. And so, so I said, so I guess that means I'm not retiring this year.
Yeah.
She said, nope. When you can come up with an idea of something to do where your mind's working, okay. So during that last school year, that 08-09 school year, I came up with outlines for 4 fiction books.
And these books, I'm going to change the scroll. These books can be seen at this URL, theralphbowman.info.
Yeah, that's my website, and I'm now working on my 43rd book.
Oh man, you're like
Most of
Cyrus
them
Laquadala.
most of them are westerns. Most of them are westerns because I'm a diehard western fan, and some of them I just started writing at the request. Well, no, 3 of them are children's books.
Mm-hmm.
My grandchildren didn't want to play games. They just wanted to be on electronics. So I wrote 3 children's books placed back in pioneer times in the early 1800s, and had what called it the Pioneer Kids 1, 2, and 3. And I used games as part of the story. Games that, according to my research, were actually played by pioneer kids.
Nope.
And I did it as a way of teaching my grandchildren that they didn't need to always be on the computer. They could do other things. And they eagerly read the books. And they kept right on playing their games.
Well, Ralph, when did Kansas become a state?
1860.
So the early 1800s, that territory wasn't a state. It was like, I remember there was a Homestead Act where
right. That was 1850.
So it became a state shortly after that. But
well,
before then,
technically, I didn't place it in Kansas. I just said,
okay.
Okay, it could have been Kansas, Iowa, Nebraska. People who knew me always assumed it was Kansas.
Yes,
but
like I did.
Technically, how Kansas was originally settled was that you could use the Homestead Act, or Union soldiers after the Civil War were granted 160 acres free of charge. And they didn't have to go by the Homestead Act and actually live on the land so many years and develop the land. All they had to do was have this paper that they had served for the Union Army. They could show up. And in fact, a little side note here, in doing a history of my former town, I didn't write it. I was the editor of it. And 106 people volunteered information. But I found out that some Confederates snuck in and pretended to be Union soldiers and got some free land and settled there.
Yeah.
But
if that was a rebel, I would have done it.
Yeah. So that's how the state grew.
Yeah, very interesting. So, but you also have done some writing in chess, and let me pull up what I'm thinking of. I have seen this, and talk to me a little bit about this.
Okay, Dwayne and I came up with that idea back in 2005, and but we just toyed with it off and on, and then we took it seriously about 3 years ago. Excuse me. And the idea is we wanted to get people to submit stories for a book.
And I'm changing the scroll.
That would last forever. And what they do is what's down at the bottom is an email address that if you have a story, then you can submit it. And it's published in the book. We tell your name, where you're from, and that way it's there for eternity. You don't have to worry about people forgetting it. All the proceeds from this book go to the national invitationals, the Dinker tournament, the Barber tournament, the Eisenhower tournament, and the, oh gosh,
Rockefeller?
yeah, not Eisenhower, Rockefeller, and the girls' tournament.
The
name for the former president of USCF.
I know. We're both blanking on someone I knew very well.
Yeah. I apologize to her for forgetting her name, but
I can't believe I am too. It was one of those things where you forgot it, so I forgot it.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to forget it.
Her. I'm picturing her in my mind.
So I'm going to read it. It's the Women's International Ruth Herring National Tournaments for Girls.
I apologize 1,000 times.
Well,
yes, Ruth Herring was former president of the USCF. Yeah. Yes. Good for you.
Okay. So now that's been so popular that we're doing Humor in Chess 2. And we've got, we're about, 3/4 of the way finished with that book. And if you have a story you would like to submit, you've got to the end of May. And then we're going to put together that book and release it. Now, you can buy Humor in Chess from at Amazon. You can get it in paperback, or you can get it on Kindle, or you can get it through USCF book sales.
Okay, good plug. So in retirement, you have just, instead of sitting down in your lazy boy and watching the Western Channel, you've actually you published 43 books. You're working on a Humor in Chess 2. Yep. And this is
don't tell my wife, but I still watch the Western Channel whenever I can.
Lips are sealed. But that is just an amazing story. So we've learned about the Super Nationals. They are national tournaments combined to make them super. And Correct. We've learned a little bit about what it takes to produce an event of that magnitude. And
one other point about Super Nationals is that one of the I had to make 2 agreements with Sunil to get the Super Nationals 2 approved. One was that there would only be one Super Nationals every 4 years.
Oh, okay.
And 2, that I would resign as chairperson of the Scholastic Committee for the year immediately preceding and the year of Super Nationals 2. That way, no one could say that there was any conflict of interest.
Good for you.
And I readily agreed to both of those because I knew my time was going to be involved with planning, and I wouldn't have time for a lot of the national stuff anyway. So I readily agreed to that.
Well, good for you for that, because if there's a potential for a conflict of interest charge, it will be done. We know definitely. Chess players. So the idea of, but also the fact that it takes so much work to put this on. It's only every 4 years because of the work required to do something of this nature, of this magnitude, and to pull it off, to do it well.
Well, while that is true, it's not the whole truth. Okay. As a former chairperson of the Scholastic Committee, I can tell you that by moving the tournaments around the country, okay, to all different areas around the country, you are sparking interest in scholastic chess all over the country. So there aren't that many facilities that can hold a Super Nationals, but there are plenty of facilities that can hold a national elementary, a national middle school, or a national high school.
Share the wealth.
So by spreading them out every year, it gets local kids more interested in national chess.
Well, I think that is magnificent, because that is one of the primary purposes of the Eid Foundation. We want to help with chess literacy, being able to read and write chess notation. We want to help with chess excellence. If you want to be as good as you can be, we're all for that. If that's your passion, take it as far as you can. And if you get interested in something else, fine. But chess teaches you things that are life lessons. And when we involve children in chess, we give them a gift that lasts a lifetime. Some of these are the ability to sit still and think. Because one of the things, when I went to a national elementary, one of the things I was most impressed by was when the clock started, the kids were all quiet. Because there's lots of chatter and noise in the background, and you could hear a pin drop, exactly. And so that was one of the things. Sitting still and thinking is a gift, because it's directly transferable back into the classroom. So the need to postpone immediate gratification. If you move your queen out and keep moving your queen, you're not going to have good results. So you move other pieces out before you move your queen out. You learn these things to postpone the first thing you want to do. And the thing that kept me back when I was young, starting out playing chess, was my impulsive nature. The first move I saw, I thought I had to play it. And I played a move that as soon as I played it, I saw the reputation of it. But I had to learn to sit on my hands before I moved. The first thought was not always the best thought. And
you would make a good coach. That's the number one thing I had to teach my kids over and over and over.
Yeah.
But what you just said reminded me of a little story that happened during Super Nationals too. Whenever I got the chance, I would sit down, and because I had to walk the whole tournament. And one of those times, I'm sitting down in a booth with Grandmaster Yasser Seirawan, and we're talking.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. And while we're talking, 2 or 3 kids would come up and have them sign autographs and stuff like that. But about 50 feet away, we had gotten Josh Waitzkin, the subject of the Searching for Bobby Fischer book and movie. Yes. And there was never a line in front of Grandmaster Seirawan. There was a line at least 30 people deep, constantly in front of Josh Waitzkin. And Yaz and I were talking, and he said, "Here, I've won 4 U.S. championships."
Yes.
He's never even come close to winning a U.S. championship. And he's got this big line.
What does that tell you?
Waiting. And I've got no line.
I've been Yaz. I've never been Josh in that circumstance.
I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. And a few seconds later, Yaz turned to me and said, "But that is good for chess."
It is, and good for him for realizing that. And I think he's an example for all grandmasters. He's always presented himself professionally well, and he was always looking at how, if your slice of the pie is small, grow the pie, and your slice gets bigger. So I love that attitude, and I see that in more and more people as I get older and older. And it seems to me that our attitude has changed, and it's not so much about what can chess give to me, but what can I give to chess? And you're a walking embodiment of that, Ralph Bowman.
Well, thank you.
You have led by example, and you've walked the talk. And I thank you so much for being my guest today. But my producer is telling me that we're running up against the deadline. And I just wanted to have enough time to ask you, is there anything else that we haven't covered, anything else that we want to talk about that we haven't talked about yet? Do you have anything else you want to say as a final remark?
Play chess.
Play chess. All right, thanks, Ralph. I'm going to take us out now. If my producer cooperates, you're going to be going backstage right now. Okay, this has been the Chess Files. The answers are out there. And if you don't know the answer, find someone who does. And it's been produced by the Eid Foundation. Yes, produced well by the Eid Foundation. The Eid Foundation is dedicated to building communities through chess. And if you're part of a community, you're never alone. And if you can access the international chess community through the internet, wonderful, do so, please, I beg you. But if you cannot, the Eid Foundation can help you get started. You can build a community wherever you are, whatever language you speak, whatever country you're from, it just doesn't matter. We can help you get started. Build a community. You'll never be alone. So this has been the Chess Files. The answers are out there by James Eid. And next week, I'm getting my COVID second shot, which I have had reports that people sometimes feel ill the next day, and I'm getting it the day before it's scheduled. It's every Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern. And if I cannot be here because I am under the weather, I will have something for you. And so tune in and keep watching the Chess Files. The answers are out there.